This is Neil W. McCabe, the host of Gold Institute Insights, and we're back with John Wohlstetter, and we're talking about the 25th Amendment. And previously, we've talked about the history of the 25th Amendment, really some of the issues that led to the idea that it was necessary. And finally, in 1967, it was enacted by Congress, and here we are. You know, we're talking now, it's August 19th of 2021. We've just experienced the fall of Afghanistan, and there's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. that maybe President Joseph R. Biden Jr. will not finish his term. Obviously, we wish him the best of health, and we don't want anything untoward towards him and his health or his family. But John, you have sort of diced out 5 possible scenarios that could happen with President Biden. And the first scenario is that Biden decides to take himself out.
Yes, this is under Section 3 of the amendment. He's taken ill. He realizes that he can't perform. It really goes a little bit toward the Eisenhower scenario in 1958. Only this time, Biden doesn't recover the way Eisenhower does. Of course, Biden's recovery from where he is now, where there are some issues that a lot of people have, we really don't know just what his condition is. He returned to where, if he doesn't return to where he is, which is actually the first scenario, then in the second scenario,
right. So the second scenario is that he's too physically ill to continue, and you would compare this to Woodrow Wilson or James A. Garfield. Go ahead.
Garfield is the second. The first is Eisenhower, and Biden gets better, and he returned to where he is now. The second one is James Garfield, and again, these scenarios have different endings, but it's just to put a face on it and a little bit of concrete history. Here, he has better medical care than Garfield had. But at the same time, he's not able to return. He lives, but he takes himself out under Section 3. He declares himself. He retires. He resigns. Said, "I just can't continue." The third one is the Woodrow Wilson one. This is the one that most closely parallels what we could see here, and that is Biden.
This is where the first lady becomes regent, John.
That's right. This is what happens here is that Biden, in this scenario, and these are all scenarios, they're not predictions, but what is his health declines, particularly his mental acuity, but maybe also to some extent his physical acuity. And he is really no longer able to govern, but the family decides, listen, we're going to hang in here and finish the term, and then he's not going to run for a second term. And Jill would be the engine behind that, and those among the White House aides and others that she trusts. I don't know what her list is, but we those, except we could be pretty sure that Kamala is not a member of that. And so and they finish out the term somehow. That's the third scenario.
So scenario 4 is there was a book about a Camp David coup, and so this is sort of your Camp David family generated takeout of the president. Go ahead, please.
This is a forced resignation scenario where the president wants to get back. He said, "I'm not disabled," and the Congress and the vice president, a majority, want him to leave. And this was laid out. The Night at Camp David was a 1968 political thriller by the great Fletcher Neville, who was best known for co-authoring 7 Days in May, which was a huge hit as a picture and as a book a few years earlier. And in this scenario, what you have is a president who starts to show signs that lay people would call paranoid delusions and delusions of grandeur and of delusions of persecution. doctors are a little more nuanced, and they're not really totally on board. The cabinet is split, and the president finds out about it, and he now confronts them in a Georgetown townhouse, and he gives a bravura performance. And some of those who want to push him out change their mind. Well, the next day, the president has more heart tremors on top of a murmur, more heart problems, and he declares himself disabled, and he resigns, and the sitting vice president is then becomes the president. So disaster is averted in the novel by this, but it goes through the kinds of things that can happen where you have a dispute over how sick is he, or where the person who accuses the president is accused of being maybe ill himself, as happened in the book. You're the one who's sick. You have delusions about the president. And all sorts of stuff like this can happen. It's a Pandora's box. No one wants to see it opened. But this is one scenario, and it was very well framed by the novelist.
So scenario 5 is the one that I think everybody is licking their chops over. This is I think you called it the palace coup scenario. And why don't you flesh that out for us, please, John?
Successor regicide. I mean, what we have now is palace intrigues. We don't know which factions are up or down, and people are leaking things to the press from one of the other factions. But it could be called a palace coup as well. Basically, what happens here is Kamala wants to be president. She knows that if she runs in 2024, having been a vice president, she's so unpopular she doesn't think she can be elected. So she finds some people, not only in the White House but elsewhere, who have serious doubts. Biden's condition maybe deteriorates somewhat more. She can't do it now. And then what they try to do is they try to get her out. If she gets some allies in Congress, and the Republicans the Democrats look at this and say, if Joe Biden is still on president in 2022, we're going to get creamed in the elections. This is where Afghanistan could play in, which was just after what I published. Namely, if his poll numbers tank and they stay down there, and the Democratic Party's poll numbers tank because of this, and they look like we're going to get swamped next week, they will have an incentive to push him out. And basically, there's either the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is they go to Joe Biden and whoever else is going to be in on this, and they say, go ask the president to resign. And if you don't do that, we can we will impeach and remove him from office. And because of Pelosi's snap impeachment, which was in a day, they can do this, and the trial was 5 days. They can do this really quickly. Right. Impeachments used to take much more time. And so she's created a precedent that it could be used quicker than anyone thought. And if
but the 25th, but to wrap up, John, the 25th Amendment is in fact a vice president and cabinet-led impeachment and conviction.
Well, not necessarily. You could have people in Congress. It's a group thing. But the main thing about it is that in real life, you want to get them out if you can get them to resign. And the way you do that is you tell Jill and others, say, listen, he can pardon you for federal crimes, he can. But you go through impeachment, we will have state prosecutors after you, and there's all sorts of stuff, Hunter's laptop and all that sort of thing. We could find some violations there and make your life miserable. Why don't you go out the easy way? If that doesn't work, then the other one is to declare a disability. And if they can get enough votes on that, if Biden's condition deteriorates to the point where he really isn't compos mentis at all, rather than just having some level of impairment, if it comes to that, then they could do that, or else they could persuade him to resign based under that threat. That's your two routes.
Wow.
And
Well, John, I think that you have given the viewers an absolutely comprehensive understanding of the 25th Amendment, its history, and sort of the forces at play that forced Congress to come up with some kind of solution, as flawed as it may be. And I think you've also laid out that it is with us today, and it could actually play out in Washington today in this current administration of President Joseph R. Biden Jr. I want to thank you for being the guest. Go ahead.
One final point. We
Sure.
are a very different nation in the America of 1967 or even in the 70s. There were partisan divisions, but we had common ground. Now we are a badly fractured America, and the impact of a dispute like this could drive us toward even secession and possible civil war. It is that serious a crisis.
Well, that wasn't the optimistic note I wanted to end on, John, but thank you for that. I want to thank John Wohlstetter for being my guest on Gold Institute Insights. My name is Neil W. McCabe. I'm a media fellow here at the Gold Institute and the national political correspondent for the Tennessee Star and the Star News Network. Thank you for joining us today. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Gold Institute Insights.